I didn't I didn't take any notes. This is going to be me just spitballing my thoughts. And
Coming out of my brain.
I might be bringing in some Rise of Skywalker talk.
Oh, please, no. Okay, listen, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Dads of Dagobah. I don't want to hear any of you complaining about the lack of material and podcasts we've been putting out. It's been a very stressful summer. Okay?
Summer, it's been like 6 months. And I'm very excited to be back. But yes, Joseph, if a global pandemic wasn't enough, we also have overcome crippling technical difficulties this evening to bring you this podcast.
Tell me about it. And my Disney Plus is saying I need to update my payment, but yet when I go change my credit card, it's not letting me change my credit card. So there. So about season 4, I think I will no longer have access to Disney Plus.
Well, why don't you just send me your credit card info and I will try to work it out. I'll be your
Okay.
missionary with Disney Plus.
Wait, couldn't Disney Plus be considered a business expense?
Yeah, I think that this pretty much is the way that we're the momentum we have on this video in this YouTube channel. I'm thinking that this will be our full-time job soon.
Can't I just write this all off? This is a write off, right? Joking aside, we're glad to be back. We have seen and we will be talking about they're not calling them episodes, chapter 9
Chapter 9.
of The Mandalorian. There will be spoilers. If you have not seen it, do not watch this video until after you have seen it. And with that, let's talk about it, Sean. The Mandalorian makes its wonderful debut in a time where our country needs it most. To the sands of Tatooine we go. But first, before we go to Tatooine, we have a little side quest. I guess we don't know the planet yet. We don't know much about it other than it was kind of an interesting wrestling match, WWE style, throwing people out of the ring, off the turnbuckle, onto a table. I was just waiting for someone with a folding chair to come in, you know? That was kind of a fun scene.
And there was some fun graffiti outside on the walls as he was walking in. And I didn't notice all of it. I sure if I rewatched it, I'd find more stuff. But it looked like there was a C-3PO face in the graffiti,
Oh,
like
no way.
the old Ralph McQuarrie concept art from C-3PO was in the graffiti. Yeah,
So we kind of set up the whole. I think this is going to be the whole season. Is I don't know if we're ever. Maybe eventually we'll get to the Jedi, because I guess that's what the smelter, whatever we're calling her from season 1, wanted him to go do.
I think she's the armorer.
The armor, right? To go find the Jedi, the secret race of Jedi, to bring him back to his kind. But in order to do that, he needs to go find some more Mandalorians to use their, what do you call them? Coverts? Is that the term?
Oh, there.
Their
Yeah,
underground coverts to lead him on his path.
yeah.
And his friend tells him to go to Tatooine, where he has seen or heard of another Mandalorian. So yeah, we go back to Tatooine. Now, just to recap for those of you who don't remember, we were on Tatooine last season for the Gunslinger episode, where we had him go into the cantina and go to the same desk and table and chair where Greedo and Han Solo, and he meets that younger bounty hunter, and they go into the desert, they meet the Tuskenators, all that stuff. And at the very end of the episode, there was some shoes with the sound of what people thought was Boba Fett, his shoe sound, his, what they call it,
Like the spurs on his boots.
right, the spurs.
From his boots.
People speculated that was Boba Fett, but we had no confirmation. There were rumors going around the summer that the man who played Jango Fett from episode 2, Attack of the Clones, was reprising his role and spoiler alert, at the very end of the episode, we finally see that. But let's not go there yet. Let's talk about Tatooine. What do you think, Sean?
Well, I thought a couple things. First of all, to give some context about what I thought about this episode, I need to give a very quick summary of my thoughts from season 1 of The Mandalorian, which was I thoroughly enjoyed season 1. I didn't think it was bad at all. I loved a lot of the episodes, but my chief complaint from season 1 was, I guess, two things. One, I felt like the episodes were too short. Some of the episodes in season 1 were like just barely over 30 minutes. And I was expecting more, closer to an hour long episode for every episode. So I was really excited to see that they started season 2 off right, in my opinion. We got a 54-minute episode, which gave it time to breathe and us to get into the story in the episode. I really like that. Two, my other minor complaint from season 1 was I felt like every episode was like its own short story, and there was a lack of an overall plot across all 8 of the chapters. And there were some arcs over, the first 3 episodes, and then later on it kind of came back together, but we deviated too much. And that was, I think, one of the complaints of the gunslinger episode on Tatooine in season 1, was that it just seemed random. Like, okay, now we're back on Tatooine. Why are we back on Tatooine? How does this fit into anything? At the time, it felt like it didn't fit in.
It was probably the weakest episode, I feel like.
Yeah.
My least favorite.
Yeah. I agree. And so now that we were back on Tatooine here, when we were on that first planet, I was into it. I was into the Gamorrean wrestling, and I thought it was awesome. And from the very beginning, I appreciate that we have a plot and a storyline that we know is the focus of the season. Him finding other Mandalorians and trying to get the child back to its own species, or to the Jedi, which season 1 lacked that. I didn't know, what was the plot of season 1. And obviously part of that was because it was a brand new show and it was a pilot and they had to build the world and the characters. So like I said, I loved season 1, but I'm really excited for season 2 because I think that they can take what was great about season 1 and make it even better. And this episode, chapter 9, made me think that they are going to do that. I felt incredibly excited at the end of this that, okay, they can take this to such higher levels than they took it in season 1 because of the setup that they've done.
Yeah.
So when that guy was like, there's a Mandalorian, he's on Tatooine, I thought, really? We're going back to Tatooine? Like, can we
I
go?
always want to go back to Tatooine.
Seriously, can we go anywhere else? They should have gone to Jakku. That's where they should have gone.
They go to Jakku or Tatooine.
But also, I was watching with my wife, and as soon as he said that, I said to her, and I promise I had not looked at spoilers. I had stayed off of Twitter all day in anticipation for this, and I said, surely if they go back to Tatooine for Mandalorian, this isn't going to be Boba Fett.
Yeah. Oh, I thought the opposite. I thought, if we're going back to Tatooine for Mandalorian, this has to be Boba Fett.
Yeah.
There's no way we're going to go back to Tatooine for just some other guy.
I don't know why I was in denial, because I saw all the fan theories from last season that was Boba Fett at the end of chapter 5, the Tatooine episode from season 1. And I had seen that Temuera Morrison had been cast in The Mandalorian. I don't know why, but I just thought, like, are they really going to do Boba Fett? And then we get to Tatooine, and we get to, what was it called?
Pogo? Progro?
Pegro? We don't know. Whatever it is. And we get there, and I thought, it's like this twist. It's not Boba Fett. It's this other guy, the Marshal. Cobb Vanth, or whatever his name is. And so I really liked that. I thought, this is a really refreshing twist, I thought, because it wasn't going to be, he shows up to a cantina and Boba Fett is there. Anyway, obviously by the end of the episode that changed, and I still am excited about that reveal. It's enough of a twist for me that I'm now intrigued.
Can I say this before we move on? I like how you said that season one they had those episodes that kind of more filler episodes. I feel like the middle four, the first two and the last two kind of were, but then the middle four were kind of disjointed. I kind of felt the same way about this episode as a microcosm of that. Like the point of the episode was to find a Mandalorian, and really the whole point of this episode was to get the armor. And there's this huge deviation away, 40 minutes plus of killing a dragon to get the armor. I 100% enjoyed it, but I was like, I remember when the Tusken Raiders were kind of talking to each other for that long sequence, and Abby looked at me and she's like, boy, it's taking a long time for them to get to the point here. Like, it kind of like took a while to, anyway.
That is true. It's absolutely true that if you were hoping for getting right into the action of finding Mandalorians and making progress on that, this was, you could say by the end of the episode, he's not any closer to finding Mandalorians.
He has armor now, which by Creed he has to get.
Yeah.
So I do want to say one thing about the sheriff, the guy. I do believe in the book Aftermath, it is another piece of the puzzle is in some of the books that came out right when Disney bought the rights to Lucasfilm. They came out with a bunch of books right after the Battle of Endor. There's the Aftermath series. There are 3 books, and in one of the books there is armor that is described very much like Boba Fett's armor, being held on Tatooine by some guy. I believe it might be this guy. So it's kind of an interesting. They brought in this guy and the armor into this story here. I thought when he first showed up in the cantina, Abby and I were both like, "That's not Boba Fett. Is that Boba Fett?" Like,
he looked a little too scrawny.
Yeah, I'm like, that's not Boba Fett. Anyway, very interesting.
Well, I do have a confession. Because I finished watching a few minutes before you, I jumped on Twitter after, because I'd been off Twitter all day and was looking at Alex Damon from Star Wars Explained and all these people, and looking at the hashtag, and saw the same thing, that guy Cobb Vanth is the same character from the Aftermath trilogy. So that's some connective tissue. I didn't read those books, so when I was watching the episode, it wasn't some really aha moment for me as a fan, because I had no idea who he was. But it's still, even without reading those books, obviously, it was still a great episode, and that was still a really interesting premise. I don't think I missed out on enjoying the story or the episode because I hadn't read those books. But I also appreciate that type of connective tissue is something that fans want. They want to see, the things that they read in the books or the comics or what we see in maybe even the video games, that ties into what we see in the live action TV series or the movies.
I feel like all over the place there are Easter eggs in this show. It is more chock full of Easter eggs than any of the movies. I mean, I see them all over the place. We again have the ice cream maker thing, which held the crystals. We have Boba Fett's armor. I wrote some of these down. The kayak dragon, that is from A New Hope. We see a skeleton of one where R2-D2 and C-3PO walk past one. And then when Luke is being attacked by Tusken Raiders, Obi-Wan Kenobi calls out in a kayak dragon to scare off the Sand People. And so that sound effect, which was edited a few times in the special edition, kind of over and over again until it's now in the Blu-ray version, it's very long and very strange. But anyway, it's the same call that was used in this episode. And then I wonder if you caught this one too. I'm sure you did. The speeder that the guy used, what did that remind you of?
The champion of the Boonta Eve Classic, Anakin Skywalker's pod race.
Now this is pod racing.
I said it at least 3 times to Corey, my wife, as we were watching. I was like, "Is that Anakin's pod racer?"
It's gotta be.
It's gotta be. It looks too similar, but also it looked a little bit different. I'm like, but that's gotta be it, right? I mean,
it looks like he just gave it a paint job or something. But
it's first of all, if you go back to episode 1 and watch the pod racing scene, Anakin's pod racer does not look like anybody else's. The engines are completely unique. So it's not like two pod racers would look that similar. So I'm like, that's similar enough to my headcanon, that was Anakin's pod racer.
Mm-hmm.
Another Easter egg that before we even get to the Marshal and that little village that we can't remember the name, so I'm going to avoid trying to say it and pronounce it, is when he comes into Mos Eisley and lands, he sees the pit droid lady from the last season, and R5 is there, which is the red droid from A New Hope at the very beginning.
The bad motivator.
The bad motivator, which we learn in a certain point of view.
Is a Jedi droid.
He is self-aware and realizes that R2D2 is significant to the rebellion and saving the galaxy, and so he fakes his own demise so that the Owen Lars will buy R2D2 instead. So he's actually a hero, and it's nice to see that he's okay, and he seemed to be in pretty good condition there.
Yeah, you could tell the spot on the back of his head where it looked like the motivator failed. You could see some gunk there.
Yeah.
But for those of you who haven't read that book from a certain point of view, it's fantastic. And so basically, it's 40 short stories written by 40 different authors about minor characters in A New Hope. Let's not get into that right now. But Empire Strikes Back book comes out next month. But yeah, R5 makes a nice appearance.
I have another Easter egg, unless you have more on your list you want to talk through.
No, go for it. That's all I had so far.
The other Easter egg, and I agreed with all of yours, the noise of the crate dragon that was the same as Obi-Wan's noise, but then the pearl. So in the Knights of the Old Republic video game, which
I haven't finished yet.
When you get to Tatooine, the Tusken Raiders in the Knights of the Old Republic video game talk about like crate dragon pearls, and that they like value them, and so that's part of like the quest that you do on Tatooine. And so
cool.
When the Mandalorian first said to Cobb or to the village people, hey, the Tusken Raiders will help us and they won't lift a blaster against you unless you break the peace, as long as we give them the carcass and anything inside, I immediately thought, I bet that there's going to be a pearl from like the crate.
Nice.
But I was expecting a pearl the size of a dadgum baby elephant. Man, that thing was a big pearl.
That was a big dragon.
That's true.
Let's talk about the Tusken Raiders a bit. I don't know if this is canon anymore. It's in the Obi-Wan. Did you ever read the Obi-Wan book?
No.
It's Legends now, but they talk a lot about the Tusken Raiders, and they're a female-led group of people. And I think the Tusken Raider part of this show was so fun and so interesting. To give them more of a backstory, we see the dogs or the creatures from episode 3 at the Tusken Raider camp when Anakin goes to save his mother. Those make an appearance, and I just really enjoyed it. I thought some of the parts though where they're talking in Tuscanese and doing the hand gestures was kind of long, but it worked. It was fine. It was an interesting plot, I guess. But the fight against the dragon was the action-packed moment of the show.
Yeah, a couple things about the Tusken Raiders. It was interesting to see because, I mean, pretty much every portrayal we've ever seen of them in the movies, shows, whatever, is they are the adversary, right? They're the enemy. They're the kind of the savages that are brutal and stuff like that. And so I kind of like that the Mandalorian, one, can communicate with them and has this relationship with them, but he also respects that they are like a brutal people when he's explaining it to the colonists. Like, hey, yeah, they are brutal, but they've survived in this desert for 1,000 years, and like they have a culture and a history and everything, and they are the indigenous people of the Dune Sea. you guys are the ones intruding and infringing on their, territory or whatever. So there's a message in there somewhere. Anyway, so I thought that was interesting to see them not just at war with the colonists or whatever, but being able, communicating with the Mandalorian. And I thought it was funny when they were handing, uh, I can't remember his name. I just call him Danny Cordray from The Office, the Marshal.
Oh, it is the same guy. I was
Yeah, it's
wondering
the
where I
same
saw
guy.
him from.
Yeah.
Danny
As soon
Cordray.
as it came up, me and Corey were like, "Isn't that guy in The Office?" And we're like, "Yeah, what's his name? It's Danny Cordray." The best salesman in the Northeast. Um, anyway, uh, when they're handing him like the water or the drink or something to drink, he's like, they're like, you want the Mandalorian's like, you want their help, don't you? He's like, not if I have to drink that. I felt like the the banter between Mando and Cobb was pretty good. And I was worried at the very beginning because it was so tense, and I'm like, are they gonna have a shootout right here, and like one of them's gonna die? And then to see that they ended up being pretty good, like I would like Cobb to be in more episodes and it be kind of a buddy cop type of relationship because I thought there was some good chemistry there between those two characters. Um, but yeah, the dragon fight, I feel like if it taught me one thing, it's that another good sign for season two. Clearly, the scale of what they're going to do in these episodes and the budget and the special effects, I feel like has
Oh
gone
yeah.
up a notch from
Oh
season one.
yeah. Oh yeah. As soon as they started doing those sweeping shots and the thing came out of the cave, I was like, okay, yeah, the budget here is a little bit higher than last season. I loved the introduction of the dragon, how it came into town, slithering through town, and when I first saw the noise or heard the noise and saw it come through, I was like, is that one of those dragon things? Because like it's such a passing thing in A New Hope. I'm like, and everyone's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I think it's one of those dragon things. Anyway, a fun little introduction at the cave though, where the Tuscanator calls out to it and it comes and eats him instead of the Banta. I thought
Yeah,
that was hilarious.
that was funny. I agree with you. And then when it started spewing its venom or whatever, I wasn't expecting that, and I'm like, is that acidic? Is it killing people? I
Yeah, I
couldn't
didn't
tell.
know what it was doing either. I'm like, are they burning? Because they seem to like get back up and there's like, oh gosh, that was bad.
Yeah, like oh, gross. But yeah. Anyway, that whole scene I thought I was like, I was into it, and it made me excited for the rest of the season on what they're gonna do with the visuals and the special effects and stuff. And I think it's a good sign. I'll ask you this question: was the child underutilized in this first episode? Did you want more of the child?
I honestly, I had two thoughts going into the main fight. The first thought was, oh, they're going to strap a bunch of bombs to a bantha and have the dragon eat the bantha and blow it up. And then when they didn't do that, I'm like, okay, that's strange. But then they did. And I was like, oh. And I was like, oh, you called it. Then the other idea was when the first set of bombs didn't go off, I'm like, is the child going to reach out and stop the dragon somehow? Like, there's no way. There's no way. And obviously that did. But that was kind of my thought was, because I was thinking too, like, how are they going to use the child now? Because is he just a cute little thing? Is it just because in the first few episodes of the first season, it was just kind of this cute little. But then when it got to the Mudhorn, and we were like, oh shoot, this thing can do some things.
Yeah.
But then this episode, I just felt like, well, first of all, Abby kept saying, why are they leaving the thing behind? Like every time they went somewhere, it was just like, oh, the child's back there, fend for himself, I guess.
That is hilarious because I literally was going to say the same thing. It has to be the motherly instinct because Corey, that was like her main commentary during this episode, was constantly giving an update on why don't they know where Baby Yoda is right now? Or when he first gets to the colony and he goes into the cantina and he like leaves the child in the bag on the speeder, and Corey's like, why is he just leaving him out there in like the sun? Like, isn't Like anything could come and just take him. Like, why wouldn't he take him with him into the cantina? And then the child is like walking into the cantina now. Is like, how did he get out of the bag and off the speeder? Like, what is happening right now? And so, yeah. And then when we also get there and to Tatooine and they're on the speeder, Corey's first question too was, why don't they have his baby carrier? Wouldn't that be much better than him riding in the bag? Why is he riding in a bag when he has like this floating robotic carrier that can take him anywhere and just
Ram.
have a homing device on the Mandalorian's wrist or something where it follows him everywhere? I was like, these are all good questions, but I'm not the showrunner, Corey, so you should call Jon Favreau. I feel like he was a little bit underutilized. Um, yeah, he was cute, obviously, but he literally did nothing. And I also felt like I can't really remember any type of significant interaction between Mando and the child. Like they didn't interact with each other at all.
The only interaction was the child and the dock lady, the shipyard lady.
Yeah. But, that it didn't ruin the episode for me by any means, but I did find it interesting. Like it was definitely a back burner. There was no progression on that relationship between what's his name? Din or Jin? What's the Mando's first name?
Couldn't tell you.
I don't remember.
No idea.
I think it's Din or Jin, something like that.
Have to ask Moff Gideon.
So, those of you still watching, make sure to always tune in because we know all the answers. We're your one-stop shop on Star Wars.
His name is said one time in chapter 7. He's referred every other time as Mando or Mandalorian. I'm bad with names in the first place. Couldn't even tell you. Whatever. Let's talk about the very last scene, the very last shot.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
First of all, it sneaks up on you.
Let me play a little game with you. Is that actually Boba Fett, or is it Rex?
Oh no.
Some clone.
Like it 100% is Boba Fett.
Why?
Because Boba Fett would be on Tatooine. One. Let me just put it this way. That's a good question. Why? I can't prove it, but let me raise your question and give you another situation. Let's say it's not Boba Fett. Why in the world would Jon Favreau write this episode with all of this linkage and foreshadowing to the Mando is trying to find another Mandalorian on Tatooine? Then he finds a Mandalorian on Tatooine that is not a Mandalorian, but has Boba Fett's armor that he bought from Jawas. And Corey and I both were like, how did the Jawas get the armor?
Yeah.
And then we see Tamura Morrison at the end of the episode watching the Mando speed away with Boba Fett's armor. And it's like, oh, he now knows where the armor is. If it's Rex, why is Rex on Tatooine? Why does Rex care what's happening over here with this crate dragon?
Listen, I just don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, okay?
Did you also hear the part where they're talking about the dragon's lair or whatever, and they were saying the Tusken Raiders are saying it lives in an abandoned Sarlacc pit, and Cobb is like, I've lived on Tatooine my whole life. There's no such thing as abandoned Sarlacc pit unless the dragon ate the Sarlacc. And I'm like, did the dragon eat the Sarlacc that was holding Boba Fett, and that's how Boba Fett escaped?
Oh, I see. And so he got out through the dragon?
Yeah, or just because the dragon ate the Sarlacc, he was able to escape while the dragon was munching on the Sarlacc.
I don't know.
Because I guess if the crate dragon eats one tiny little Tusken Raider, he falls into some sort of hibernation. If he eats, he falls asleep, is what we're learning here.
Yeah, I didn't really quite understand that. But he could be woken up by shouting.
That's right.
1 or 3 Tusken Raiders shouting at him. Did you also notice another Easter egg I just remembered that whatever the sheriff's name is. They're both on top of the mountain. They're fighting the dragon. First of all, why did they have to go on top of the mountain? They didn't do anything up there. And Abby's like, it's because they can show off the jetpacks. Okay, that's cool.
And why aren't they shooting the eyes? They're shooting everywhere but the eyes. I'm like, there's only one vulnerable place on this whole side of this dragon, and it's the eye, and you guys are shooting off 20 feet away from it.
Every other place. But did you notice that the Mandalorian hit the jetpack of Jango Fett, and he goes flying away? I was like, oh, that's cool. That's from Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
When Han does it to him.
We also get to see in the flashback, we get to see Cobb bend over and use the missile out of the top of the jetpack.
And the little sight, the radar sight, whatever it is.
Which is from the old, action figure prototype toy that's like now worth thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars at auction if you have one of those original Boba Fett action figures that had the little missile launch.
Didn't Jango's also do that too? Didn't Jango shoot his at Obi-Wan or something, or at one of the Geonosian animals?
Yeah, in Attack of the Clones, he shoots it, I think, at Obi-Wan on that platform battle in the rain.
Yeah. So I also think it's Boba Fett, but because yes, I agree with all those things. Why would they have his armor and talk about a Mandalorian? But man, he's bald and he looks old.
He's been slowly digested in a Sarlacc pit for 6 years. Because isn't this supposed to be 6 years after Return of the Jedi?
It was some amount of time. Yeah, something like that.
So if that is true, then he fell into the Sarlacc pit in Return of the Jedi. So I don't know how long it's been since he got out, but he was not slowly digested over 1,000 years, like C-3PO said he was going to be.
Well, should we do predictions for the next episode? Talk about what we think is going to happen, or just wait until next Friday?
I don't know if I have a lot of predictions, but I do have things I'm excited for that we are anticipating in the season. We still obviously are going to see Ahsoka Tano at some point, we think. I am excited.
Or some sort of Jedi. I mean, we would assume a Jedi.
The Boba Fett thing adds another wrinkle of before this episode in season 2, I would have said my biggest things that I was anticipating or wanting to see happen would be, how does Ahsoka come into the story? From the trailer, we know that he's going to try to find Jedi. Does he find Jedi? And then, basically, I would say that Ahsoka, does Mando find Jedi, and then just find out more about the child. The more I learn about the child,
and Moff Gideon in the Darksaber.
Oh yeah, Moff Gideon. See, there's tons of things that I feel like there's plenty of storylines, but now, just as important as all of those, throw in Boba Fett ? Like, what? Boba Fett? The question
in the words of our late great roommate, Boba Fett is the coolest Star Wars character.
Yeah, coolest Star Wars character.
What?
Anyway, so yeah, I think that there's plenty of question marks still that this season. I hope that the rest of the episodes are similar length, and that we start to gain momentum in these episodes where we don't necessarily have 40-minute diversions from answering some of these questions. It's okay for this first episode. We set some things up, but let's start using these hours every week to start answering some of these questions. Am I right, Dave Filoni? Am I right,
yeah,
bro?
Let's see some more cool things this baby can do.
Yeah.
Well, with that, Sean, we are going to try and keep this up. I feel like we make this promise all the time. But how about let's try again next Friday?
I'm hoping that because there's an episode coming out every week, that we'll at least be able to talk through this season 2 of The Mandalorian. We should have a weekly video discussing each episode.
It's going to be tough, though, when the holidays come and people come to town and stuff, and we go to town, but shouldn't be too hard to try and Skype each other. Anyway, from all of us to you, have a very happy Halloween, and we'll see you next Friday for Chapter 10.
Chapter 10. And the last thing I'll say is a huge missed opportunity. I never heard anyone this episode say, "This is the way," which has to be the tagline. They need to say that at least once an episode.
Oh, yeah, why didn't they say that?
Yep. So signing off, and all I'll say to end this conversation is, "This is the way."
I have spoken. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Love you.
I know